What happens when one of Britain's most beloved acting legends sits down for what should be a friendly chat and finds himself ambushed by a host who seems determined to tear him down? In just 36 seconds, a single cutting remark would ignite a confrontation so explosive that it would end with the guest walking off set, leaving the entire panel speechless and the audience gasping in disbelief. Michael Caine settled into the bright orange sofa on the Loose Women set, his trademark glasses perched on his nose, that familiar charming smile lighting up his face. The audience applauded warmly as he waved, clearly delighted to see the legendary actor in person. He'd been invited to discuss his latest film and his incredible career spanning decades, a conversation that should have been celebratory and light. But from the moment Denise Welch opened her mouth, something felt off. "So, Michael," Denise began, leaning forward with an expression that wasn't quite friendly, "you've had quite the career, haven't you? Made a lot of money playing essentially the same character over and over again." The audience went quiet. You could feel the tension immediately. The other panelists, Nadia Sawalha, Kay Adams, and Jane Moore, exchanged uncomfortable glances. This wasn't the usual warm welcome guests received. Michael's smile faltered just slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Well, I'd like to think I've brought something unique to each role, actually. Every character has been different for me." Denise waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, come on, the Cockney charm, the same mannerisms. We've all seen it before, haven't we, ladies?" Nadia shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. "I think Michael has incredible range, actually. His performance in The Quiet American was nothing like his role in The Italian Job." "Thank you," Michael said graciously, nodding toward Nadia. But Denise wasn't finished. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You've made a career out of being Michael Caine rather than actually disappearing into roles like real actors do." The audience gasped. Several people could be heard murmuring in disapproval. Kay Adams jumped in quickly, trying to redirect. "Michael, tell us about working with Christopher Nolan. That must have been an amazing experience." Michael's face brightened slightly. "It was wonderful, yes. Chris is a brilliant director, and working on the Batman films and Inception was some of the most rewarding work of my career. He really challenges you as an actor." "Challenges you to do what exactly?" Denise interrupted. "Stand there and deliver exposition while looking wise." Jane Moore's eyes went wide. "Denise, that's a bit harsh." "I'm just being honest," Denise shot back. "We're always told to be authentic on this show, aren't we? Well, authentically, I've never understood the fuss about Michael Caine." Michael sat up straighter, his jaw tightening. "I see. Well, perhaps you'd like to tell me which of my performances you've actually watched." "Oh, I've seen plenty," Denise said, waving her hand again in that dismissive gesture. "The Cider House Rules, where you played a wise old doctor. Hannah and Her Sisters, where you played a sophisticated older man. Educating Rita, where you played, wait for it, another sophisticated older man." "Those are three completely different characters," Michael said, his voice still calm but with an edge now. "Different time periods, different motivations, different emotional landscapes." Nadia tried again to intervene. "Denise, I think you're being unfair. Michael is a 2-time Academy Award winner. The industry has recognized his talent repeatedly." "The industry recognizes lots of things," Denise snapped. "Doesn't mean the rest of us have to fall in line and worship at the altar of mediocrity." The audience erupted in boos. Someone shouted, "Leave him alone!" from the back rows. Michael looked directly at Denise, his famous composure cracking just slightly. "I'm sorry, did you just call me mediocre?" "I'm calling it as I see it," Denise said, crossing her arms. "You've coasted on charm and that accent for 60 years. Kay Adams put her hand on Denise's arm. "Denise, maybe we should move on to another topic." "Why?" "Because we're supposed to just fawn over every guest who comes on. I'm tired of pretending. Michael shook his head slowly. You know, I've done thousands of interviews over my career. I've been asked tough questions, challenging questions, questions that made me really think. But I've never been invited somewhere just to be insulted by someone who clearly has some sort of axe to grind. I don't have an axe to grind, Denise said. I just think you're overrated. Jane Moore leaned forward. Michael, I want to apologize for this. This isn't how we normally conduct interviews. Don't apologize for me, Denise snapped at Jane. I have a right to my opinion. You have a right to your opinion, Michael said, his voice rising slightly now. But you don't have the right to invite someone onto your program and then spend the entire time trying to tear them down. That's not an opinion. That's just being rude. The audience applauded loudly. Someone shouted, "Tell her, Michael." Denise rolled her eyes. Oh, here we go. The precious actor can't handle a bit of criticism. Criticism would be fine, Michael said. Criticism would be saying, you didn't connect with a particular performance or asking me about choices I made in a role. What you're doing is just being deliberately antagonistic. Nadia nodded vigorously. He's right, Denise. This has gone too far. You're all too soft, Denise said, looking at her fellow panelists. We're supposed to have real conversations on this show. Real conversations involve listening, Michael said. They involve respect. You haven't shown an ounce of either. Since I sat down, Denise leaned back, a smirk on her face. Maybe if you'd actually done something interesting in the last 20 years, I'd have more respect. The audience's boos grew louder. Kay Adams looked mortified. Denise, that's completely out of line. Is it? Denise challenged. Name one truly great Michael Caine performance from this century. Go on, I'll wait. The Prestige, Jane said immediately. Children of Men, Nadia added. The Quiet American, Kay chimed in. Michael watched this exchange with a slight smile, but his eyes remained hard. I appreciate the support, ladies, but I don't need defending. My work speaks for itself. Does it, though? Denise pressed. Or does your reputation speak for you, and people are too polite to say the emperor has no clothes? Michael stood up slowly, removing his microphone. The studio went dead silent. You know what? I've been in this business for over 60 years. I've worked with the best directors, the best actors, the best crews in the world. I've had wonderful experiences, and I've had difficult ones. But I have never, in all that time, been treated with such disrespect by someone who clearly knows nothing about what it takes to do what I do. Oh, here comes the dramatic exit, Denise said, but her voice wavered slightly. Yes, here it comes, Michael said, because I don't have to sit here and be insulted by someone who seems to think rudeness is the same thing as honesty. Nadia stood up too. Michael, please don't go. We'd love to hear about your new film. I appreciate that, Nadia, Michael said kindly. You've been nothing but gracious. But I think it's clear that Ms. Welch here had no intention of having a real conversation today. She wanted to create drama, and I'm not going to participate in it. The audience began applauding again, a slow clap that built into thunderous approval. Denise's face flushed red. So you're just going to run away because someone doesn't worship you? Michael turned back to face her. I'm not running away. I'm choosing not to waste any more of my time with someone who's more interested in scoring points than having a genuine discussion. There's a difference. We invited you here as a favor, Denise said, her voice rising now. You should be grateful for the platform. A favor? Michael's eyebrows shot up. You think having me on your show is a favor to me? I came here because I thought it would be a pleasant way to talk about my work and connect with your audience. But you've turned it into an ambush. Kay Adams stood now too. Michael, I am so sorry. This is not representative of how we usually do things here. I can see that, Michael said gently. And I appreciate you saying so. But I think it's best if I leave now. You're being oversensitive, Denise said, but her voice lacked conviction now. The audience's disapproval was palpable, and even she seemed to realize she'd crossed a line. "No," Michael said firmly. "I'm being self-respecting. There's a difference." Jane Moore shook her head at Denise. "You've really messed this up." "I haven't messed up anything," Denise insisted. "I asked legitimate questions." "You didn't ask questions," Michael said, his voice calm but firm. "You made accusations. You insulted my work, my talent, and my integrity. That's not journalism. That's not good television. That's just mean-spirited." Nadia moved toward Michael. "Is there anything we can do to convince you to stay?" Michael smiled at her, a genuine warm smile. "You're very kind. But no, I think the damage is done. I hope your audience understands that I truly did come here in good faith." The audience erupted in shouts of support. "We love you, Michael. Don't go. It's not your fault." Michael waved to them gratefully. "Thank you all very much. You've been wonderful." Denise stood now, her arms crossed defensively. "Fine, go then. We don't need you anyway." The other three panelists stared at her in disbelief. "Denise," Kay said quietly, "what are you doing?" "I'm not going to beg some actor to stay when he can't handle a real conversation," Denise said. Michael paused at the edge of the set, turning back one more time. "You keep saying you wanted a real conversation, but you never gave me a chance to have one. From the moment I sat down, you were attacking. That's not conversation. That's confrontation." "Maybe you needed confronting," Denise shot back. "For what?" Michael asked, genuinely curious now. "What exactly did I do to deserve this treatment? Did I wrong you personally in some way?" Denise opened her mouth, then closed it again. She had no answer. "That's what I thought," Michael said quietly. "This wasn't about me at all. This was about you wanting to make a moment, wanting to be controversial, wanting to create headlines. Well, congratulations. You've succeeded. But at what cost?" Jane Moore started clapping slowly, and Nadia and Kay joined in. The audience followed, standing now, giving Michael a standing ovation as he prepared to leave. Denise remained seated, her face growing redder by the second. "Oh, wonderful. Everyone's ganging up on me now." "No one's ganging up on you," Jane said. "But you need to hear that what you did here was wrong." "I stand by everything I said," Denise insisted, but her voice shook slightly. Michael shook his head sadly. "That's the real tragedy, isn't it? You don't even see it. You think being cruel is the same as being honest. You think tearing someone down is the same as asking tough questions. But it's not. It's just cruelty dressed up as candor." "Get off your high horse," Denise muttered. "I'm not on a high horse," Michael said. "I'm simply standing up for myself. Every person has the right to be treated with basic respect, regardless of who they are or what they do. You've denied me that today, and I'm not going to pretend that's acceptable." Nadia walked over to Michael. "Please know that we don't all feel the way Denise does. Many of us have admired your work for years." "I know that," Michael said warmly, "and I appreciate it more than you know. But I can't stay here and pretend this is okay. I have too much self-respect for that." The audience continued to applaud as Michael made his way toward the exit. Someone from the crew came over to help him with his microphone pack, apologizing profusely. "It's not your fault, love," Michael said kindly to the young crew member. "You're just doing your job." Denise finally stood, her voice loud now, almost desperate. "You know what your problem is, Michael. You can't handle it when someone doesn't fall at your feet." Michael stopped, but didn't turn around. "My problem? I don't have a problem, Denise. I came here to talk about my work. You're the one who turned this into something ugly." "I was just being honest about your career," Denise said. Now Michael did turn around, and his expression was one of genuine pity. "No, you were being hurtful. There's a difference. You can be honest without being cruel. You can have opinions without being disrespectful. But you chose cruelty and disrespect. That's on you, not me. Kay Adams covered her face with her hands. Jane Moore looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Nadia just stood there, shaking her head in disbelief. "So that's it?" Denise called out. "You're just going to walk away?" "Yes," Michael said simply. "Because I deserve better than this. And frankly, so does your audience." The audience cheered even louder. Several people were on their feet now, clapping and shouting support for Michael. Denise looked around at the crowd, at her fellow panelists, at Michael, and for the first time, something like uncertainty crossed her face. "I was just doing my job." "No," Jane said firmly. "You were being a bully. There's a difference." "I am not a bully," Denise said, her voice rising to a shout now. "Then what would you call what you just did?" Nadia asked. "You invited a guest onto our show and spent the entire time insulting him. What else is that but bullying?" Denise pointed at Michael. "He's a public figure. He's fair game." "Being a public figure doesn't mean you forfeit the right to basic human decency," Michael said. "It doesn't give people license to be cruel just because they can." The audience erupted in applause again. Someone shouted, "That's right, Michael." Denise's face crumpled slightly, and for a moment she looked lost. But then her expression hardened again. "Fine. Leave. We'll get better guests anyway." Michael smiled sadly. "I genuinely hope you do. And I hope you treat them better than you treated me." With that, he turned and walked off the set. The audience was on their feet now, applauding wildly, many of them, shouting words of encouragement and support. Nadia followed him a few steps, calling out, "Michael, I am so sorry. Truly." He turned and gave her a warm smile. "It's not your fault, dear. Take care of yourself." Back on the set, Denise stood alone while her three co-hosts distanced themselves from her, literally stepping away. The audience's applause continued, but it wasn't for anyone on that stage. It was for the man who had just walked away with his dignity intact. Kay Adams looked directly at the camera. "We need to take a commercial break." But Denise wasn't done. "Oh, brilliant. Let's all pretend I'm the villain here." "Denise," Jane said quietly, "please stop talking." "Why should I? Everyone else gets to have their say." "Because you're making it worse," Kay said. The audience was still buzzing, many people talking among themselves, some still clapping. The energy in the studio was electric, but not in a good way. It was the energy of witnessing something uncomfortable, something that shouldn't have happened. Denise sat down heavily, her arms crossed. "I don't regret anything I said." "Maybe you should," Nadia said softly. "Why? Because I didn't fawn all over him like everyone else?" Jane leaned forward. "Denise, there's a difference between not fawning and being actively hostile. You were hostile from the first question." "I was being real," Denise insisted. "You were being rude," Kay corrected. "And you've just driven away one of the most respected actors in British cinema because you couldn't control yourself." Denise looked at the audience, many of whom were still standing, some shaking their heads in disapproval. "You all think I'm wrong too, don't you?" Several people shouted back, "Yes." Others said, "You were horrible." One woman called out, "You should apologize." "I'm not apologizing for having an opinion," Denise said. "No one's asking you to apologize for your opinion," Nadia said. "But maybe apologize for how you expressed it." Denise shook her head. "No, I meant what I said." The studio fell quiet again. Even the crew members were exchanging glances, clearly uncomfortable with what had just transpired. Kay looked at the camera again. "We really do need to go to commercial." But the damage was done. In the space of just a few minutes, what should have been a delightful interview with a beloved actor had turned into a masterclass in how not to treat a guest. Michael Caine had come prepared to share stories, to laugh, to connect with the audience. Instead, he'd been met with hostility and disrespect, and he'd done exactly what any person with self-respect would do. He'd stood up, quite literally, for himself. He'd refused to be diminished. He'd walked away. The audience knew who the hero of this story was. It wasn't the host who'd tried to score cheap points. It wasn't the person who'd confused cruelty with honesty. It was the man who'd maintained his dignity in the face of unprovoked attacks. It was Michael Caine, walking off that set with his head held high, leaving behind a host who still didn't understand what she'd done wrong, and an audience who would never forget what they'd just witnessed. Backstage, Michael was surrounded by apologetic producers and crew members. "We are so sorry, Mr. Caine," one producer said. "That should never have happened." Michael waved them off kindly. "It's all right. Sometimes these things happen. But I do think someone needs to have a word with Ms. Welch about what constitutes acceptable behavior toward guests." "Absolutely," the producer agreed. "We will definitely be addressing this." Michael nodded, then smiled. "I've been in this business a long time. I've seen all sorts. But I have to say, that was a first." "You handled it with incredible grace," another crew member said. "Well," Michael said, adjusting his jacket, "there's no point in stooping to someone else's level, is there? I said my piece and I left. That's all anyone can do, really." Back on the set, as the commercial break continued, Denise sat in stony silence, while her co-hosts talked among themselves in low voices. The audience continued to buzz with conversation, many people still clearly shocked by what they'd witnessed. When the cameras came back on, Kay Adams addressed the audience directly. "Well, that was certainly unexpected." The audience erupted in response, many people shouting their opinions about what had just happened. Kay held up her hands. "I think it's fair to say that interview didn't go as planned." "That's an understatement," Jane muttered. Nadia looked directly at the camera. "I want to say, on behalf of most of us here, that Michael Caine is a wonderful actor and a lovely man, and he deserved better than what just happened." The audience applauded loudly. Denise remained silent, staring straight ahead. "Denise," Kay said carefully, "do you want to say anything?" "No," Denise said flatly. "I've said what I needed to say." The atmosphere in the studio remained tense for the rest of the show. The audience engagement was high, but not in the way the producers had hoped. People were talking, certainly. They were engaged, absolutely. But they were engaged in their disappointment, their shock, their disbelief at what they'd witnessed. And somewhere, having left the studio and the chaos behind, Michael Caine continued on with his day, his dignity intact, his self-respect preserved. He'd done hundreds of interviews in his life. He'd do hundreds more. But this one would stand out, not because of anything he'd done wrong, but because of everything he'd done right. He'd shown that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to participate in someone else's attempt to diminish you. He'd shown that grace under pressure isn't about staying silent in the face of disrespect. It's about speaking your truth, calmly, clearly, and then walking away when the situation no longer serves you. The audience that day learned something too. They learned that their beloved actor wasn't just a talented performer. He was a man of principle, someone who knew his worth and wasn't afraid to defend it. They'd watched him handle an impossible situation with class, with dignity, with firmness, and with grace. And in that moment, as he walked off that set, Michael Caine proved exactly why he'd remained one of Britain's most beloved actors for over 6 decades. Not because he was perfect, not because he never faced criticism, but because he knew who he was, and he refused to let anyone make him feel small. The interview that was supposed to celebrate his career instead became a testament to his character. And while Denise Welch sat on that stage, insisting she'd done nothing wrong, the rest of the world saw the truth clearly. Sometimes the hero of the story isn't the one with the microphone and the platform. Sometimes the hero is the one who knows when to walk away.